We asked a couple of people how their opinions have been changed by the power of words. This is what they had to say. Check this out.
So I remember last week I read an article which said, "You are allowed to leave." So that was the title. And it was pretty interesting because it depicts the passage of a daughter as she became a grown-up. When her mother used to tell her, as when she was a child, she would tell her, "You are always allowed to leave." Like she would spend, let's say, her night at her friend's place, and her mother would tell her, "Listen, at any point in time, if you feel uncomfortable, just call me. You are allowed to leave." And then, as this girl grew up, she took this this motto all around. Meaning what? Let's say she goes to a job and she feels a bit uncomfortable. She doesn't have to sacrifice. She remembers her mother. You are always allowed to leave. And that was pretty nice, because actually, if we think about our lives, what we are taught is exactly the opposite. Meaning what? Meaning we are taught that we should be kind to the others. We should be like if some people are really, let's say, they mistreat us, it's okay, we have to bear this, we have to sacrifice. And then we forget that we are allowed to leave. And this goes to every other case, like a woman, let's say, being suffering from domestic violence, a kid being bullied at school. You are always allowed to leave. You don't have to face everything. And this was a pretty nice argument that I guess I will remember.
Okay, so I would really want to point out what a good argument actually means to me personally. A good argument, a person who proceeds to say or argue with a good sense, is someone who actually is willing to listen and respect the point of view of others. So that's why I find it, I cannot remember or find a significant time that someone had changed my opinion about something based on a good argument, because I think people, or like teenagers our age, they have a really hard time understanding and appreciating how listening and appreciating and respecting the other person's point of view in an argument is. So that's why I can't remember a significant time that someone has changed my mind. But another issue that is equally important to remembering to changing someone's mind based on a good argument is to listen to them first, to appreciate what they say and actually analyze and discuss that. Like, do not go straight forward and just argue with it just because you're not convinced with it. You have to really dig deep and understand the motivation of that person behind what he's saying. So I think that's how you base a good argument. And personally, for me, it's really hard for anyone my age to have an intellectual conversation with him or her, or like really go deep and explain certain things that I do or how I think, because it's really, really difficult to find someone that has the time to actually listen and puts the effort in seeing both points of views. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a very tough question, because I think people, I think you may put it down to the fact that I am a very stubborn person, but I think when it comes to topics like that, people like to stick to the emotional side of things. They don't really like to consider the facts, so it's very hard to change someone's opinion about something. But if I had to think of a time where someone was able to change my mind about something, it would be this time in a philosophy class that we were having in the last semester, where we were discussing the death penalty, and I was on the side that was arguing against the death penalty, because mostly from an emotional standpoint. And someone pointed out the fact that if someone has gotten to that level, then they have probably always been a danger to society and themselves, and they have pretty much forfeited the right to live. And in a way, that is a very convincing fact. But I think it's very hard to change people's opinions, because they normally stick to the emotional side and they want what makes them feel good. But in reality, you have to look at things objectively and from a factual standpoint.
Okay, the last time I changed my mind based on a good argument was a Joe Rogan podcast episode that I listened to with a guest he had on there named Faraz Sahabi. Recently, I've gotten into a lot of physical fitness, trying to take care of my body and stuff like that. And I was having a lot of trouble with staying consistent with it. And I listened to this podcast where this guy was basically saying everything that I'd learned about training, about how you should go very hard, you should push yourself to the fullest, you should every day kind of, really kind of grind at it. He was saying that that's not true, that it's much more important to get volume over intensity. So he was saying, the argument that he made was that if somebody goes to the gym 3 times a day and or not 3 times a day, 3 times a week, and they go, 100%, after that day of doing 100%, your body needs a day to rest. So that next day you can't really do as much. But if you're going, say, 70%, where you're pushing yourself a little bit more, but you're not going so hard, the next day you can go back again, and the next day you can go back again. So he was explaining that if you can do things consistently and moderately over time, that you'll see much better results and feel much better about yourself than if you kind of overexert yourself. So that was the last argument that changed my mind.